saying yes. Now, this one should be an obvious one given the work that you did reading the exit strategies and understanding that section prior to this one. Clearly saying yes means that we've thought ahead of time, and we should think ahead of time as to what is the reason we're saying yes. That's the due diligence that we've done ahead of time, and what are the relationship that we want to emerge from this? Is there some reporting? Is there some evaluation? Or assessment? Is there some publication? Is there some public recognition? Is there some future funding along those lines that we want? Having thought that through in the ways in which we talked about in much more depth in the exit strategies, gives us the vehicles by the background, the backdrop is the better way to say it, the backdrop to the ways in which we want to say yes to those grantees or organizations that we want to affirm. As I said there, and it's very important to recognize, while everybody talks about relationship matters, the relationship that matters for us is the relationship that follows saying yes. There may be all sorts of things that lead up to the decision to say yes and no, but we really care about the relationship that matters afterwards. After all, as we've talked about before, we're going to say it now, and we're going to say it even before we conclude the course, we're always funding the future. There's always an uncertainty about it. We want there to be a relationship which allows honesty. We want the relationship to give us the best information possible. We want to make sure that that this yes that we're saying is one that that allows us to know, are we accomplishing what we want to accomplish? Not everything succeeds. It's not, and sometimes it has nothing to do with our funding, and sometimes it has nothing to do with the grantee. The world can change. I mean, let's take a very obvious example. If we had made a funding decision in 2019, how likely is it that everything we anticipated that was going to happen in 2020 was going to come about? We know that that's not the case. There's all sorts of things you can anticipate, and that's true with almost everything that we fund. We need to have an honest relationship with our grantees so that we can follow those things in a good way, in an honest way, in a way that's reflective of our best wishes for success. It may not happen, but we want that relationship to be there. It's the beginning of the relationship is our responsibility to make sure that we make that safe and we make it clear what we expect to happen. As we've talked about, if there are conditions with that grant, it's going to require site visits, it's going to require monitoring, it's going to require an evaluation, it's going to require other funding, it's other funders to participate, matching funds, it's going to require whatever else we're going to require. We need to make that clear at the beginning. That should be part of it. And more to the point, we have to make it safe when we've made those conditions for people to come back to us and say, wait a second, your conditions are not reasonable. Your conditions are not going to allow us to accomplish what we want to accomplish. Or your conditions are going to guarantee mediocrity because you've chosen to give us only half of what we've asked for, and this is a project that can never accomplish that quality with that amount of money. Well, sometimes that's not true. Sometimes half the amount of money will allow you to do half the project, but do it well. But you need to make it safe so that when we have conditions, the grantee can come back to us comfortably without risk to be able to tell us what the implications of those conditions are, or to understand completely how they're going to happen. And we have to be reasonable too. We have to be reasonable to understand that having equal expectations is not always equitable. For example, if we make a grant to Penn, and I'm sure many of you have done so and plan to continue to do so. Well, if we want to make a grant to Penn is a big institution. There are people whose job it is to maintain relationship with funders, to be able to prepare reports on an appropriate timely fashion. If we're funding a new startup with one staff or two staff or three staff people, we certainly should not have the same expectation that they're going to be able to give the same quality report, the same frequency of report, the same in-depth report that we would run from a place like Penn or from a major museum or major hospital. And so we have to recognize that while it may seem fair to have equal expectation when we say yes, in fact, that's often inequitable and not doable. So we have to make sure that our yes, the relationship that we say with our yes, is something that is consistent with the amount of money that we're funding and the capacity of that organization to acknowledge those requests, the relationship that we would like to have. Um, they also have to be able to say to us that our request is not only not doable, but it's inappropriate. This is this is a real case. A very major national foundation made a grant, a substantial grant to build the headquarters of an international nonprofit. A major grant that funded the entire headquarters in a very adequate way. Within the contract, there was a phrase that said, after accepting this grant, the foundation had the rights to review all printed material that came out from this organization henceforth. Well, when they read that carefully, they'd say they can't possibly mean that. If they had said that they wanted to make sure that their name was recognized, or that there was a way in which all the printed material acknowledged that the headquarters bore the name of this funder, that's one thing. But to assume that that foundation had the authority to review all printed material that henceforth came out from that nonprofit was not, frankly, inappropriate. It was probably unethical, and not an appropriate expectation. Fortunately, that nonprofit stood up to the funder, and the funder, I don't know what the intention was. I want to be honest with you. I have no knowledge of what the intention of the funder was, but they backed down. And they said, okay, we understand. Let's agree on how our name is going to be recognized in the material, but we recognize that we don't have the role to predetermine what goes out under the auspices of the organization. That's a case where the grantee absolutely would have had their hands tied indefinitely by acceding to an inappropriate request from the funder. And so that there are times when not only is it a matter of reasonable of making a balance, but also of inappropriate expectation. So it's our responsibility to make it safe for the grantees to have that conversation with us. It's our responsibility to articulate what our expectations are going to be, to make sure that the timeline is going to be there in a way that's manifest, and that we've given, and we're going to come back to this in the class when we're together, to make it sure that it has the greatest opportunity for success as going forward. So that saying yes, thinking about how we say yes is at least as important as how we think about how to say no. And all of those, as we began, all of those are the reflection of how we want the world to see us. Because going back to where we began, whatever we've done behind our closed doors, whatever we've done among our staff, whatever we've done with our boards, whatever we've done in our decision-making process, all of that is largely hidden to the people that we say yes or no to. What all they perceive is that moment when the decision is shared with them, and we tell them what our decision is and what we expect of them. So making sure that we do this is a reflection of who we are, of how we want to be perceived, of how we want the world to understand us, and particularly how we want the people in our field to understand us, is a responsibility that we take seriously. It's not accidental that we're doing this toward the end of the course, because everything else we've done in the course is about the decision making getting up to this point. But it would be but if you think about this, is you have guests for dinner. I like to cook, we like to host, we like to entertain. You know, the guests don't really care how much time you spend in the kitchen, and how many and what pots and pans you used, and all those kinds of things. What they care about is they're guests at our table, and we want them to have a presentation that makes them feel as if they're guests that we take seriously, that the aesthetics are consistent with what we want to convey. That's the and in the sense, that's what it means when we say yes and no. It's the way we serve our what we've prepared for the world to see. Sometimes that's a no, sometimes it's a yes, but in every case, it should be done with thoughtfulness, care, and the compassion for people that are really trying to do something that matters in this world. See you in class.